The alarm tore through the bridge of my flagship before I even finished my coffee. I threw the cup aside and ran to my command chair, my boots slamming against the steel floor. Red lights flashed across every console. My officers were already at their stations, their faces pale. "Report," I said, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "Commander Elias Vance, we are receiving a distress signal from the Valoran outer colonies. It is on every channel. They are being wiped out, sir, right now as we speak." My hands turned cold. I gripped the edge of my chair and felt the room tilt under me. The Valoran, the ones who saved us, the ones who stood between Earth and total ruin when I was still a child in school uniforms, reading about their sacrifice in my history books. "Put it on the main screen," I said. The image that filled the screen made every officer on the bridge go silent. Valoran cities burning, their great crystal towers, the ones they had built over 1,000,000 years, breaking like glass dropped on stone, their ships, ancient and beautiful, falling from the sky in pieces, and through the static I could hear their voices, calm, gentle. Even now, even as they died, they were not screaming, they were singing their old song, the same song they had once sung to us. I felt a young officer beside me begin to cry. Her name was Lieutenant Clara Hunt, only 26 years old, fresh from the academy. She did not try to hide her tears, none of us did. "Who is doing this?" I asked, though I already knew. "The hegemony of 9 crowns, sir. They launched a coordinated strike across every Valoran system. It is not a battle, it is an erasure. The Valoran never had time to raise their defenses." I closed my eyes for a long moment. I thought of my grandfather, who had been a boy on Earth the day the Valorians fleets arrived in our sky. He told me the story 1,000 times before he passed away. He said that when the hegemony came to end humanity, the sky turned black with their warships. Billions of people prayed to every god they could remember, and then without warning the Valorian came, tall, glowing, patient beings who had watched us from afar for centuries. They did not say much. They simply placed their ancient fleets between Earth and the hegemony and told the invaders one thing: touch the humans and you fight us first. The hegemony turned back, not because they were beaten, but because they were not ready to fight the Valorian, not yet. And for 300 years the Valorian stood as our shield. They taught us their sciences, their art, their kindness. They asked for nothing in return. When I was a boy, a Valorian teacher named Serlin came to my school and taught us poems about the stars. She told us that one day, when we were strong enough, we would have to choose what kind of species we wanted to be. Now she might be dead, they all might be dead, and the hegemony had finally done what they had waited 300 years to do. Commander Clara said softly, "What are your orders?" I stood up. My legs felt heavy, but my mind was clear. I walked to the front of the bridge and looked at the burning worlds on the screen. "Send a message to Earth," I said, "to the Unified Assembly. Tell them what has happened. Tell them the Valorian have fallen, and tell them that if they wish to keep their treaties of peace, they must do it without me." My communications officer, a young man named Peter Hall, looked up sharply. "Sir, the treaties forbid us from engaging the hegemony. If you break them, the Assembly will have you removed." "Then let them remove me," I said, "but first let them look at this screen." Let Every person on Earth look at this screen and tell me with a straight face that we should do nothing. The bridge was quiet, then Clara stood up. Commander, the crew stands with you. One by one, every officer on the bridge stood. Peter, the navigation chief, a stern woman named Grace Bennett, the weapons officer, a tall, quiet man named Henry Cole, every single one of them. I felt something break open inside my chest. It was not rage, it was older than rage. It was the grief of a child who has just learned that the ones who protected him are gone, and now he must decide what to do with the world they left behind. Send the message, I said. Peter nodded and began typing. While he worked, I walked to the great window at the back of the bridge and stared out at the stars. I thought of every lesson they Valoran had taught us. They had taught us patience. They had taught us mercy. They had taught us that strength without wisdom was the worst kind of weakness. But they had also taught us something else. They had taught us that some things are worth fighting for, that love, real love, is not just a feeling. It is a decision to stand between someone and the thing that wants to destroy them. They had made that decision for us 300 years ago, and now it was our turn. The message went out within an hour. The reply came back from Earth. It was not from the assembly, it was from the Secretary General herself, a woman named Margaret Ford, who had known me for 20 years. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the weight of the world in it. Commander Vance, she said, the assembly has convened. The treaties that bound us are being torn up as we speak. The people of Earth have seen that footage. There are no protests. There are no debates. There is only one voice now, and it speaks with the same words. Across every continent, we will not let them die unavenged. We will not let the galaxy forget what the Valoran did. For us, you have full command authority. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. Bring them our answer, Elias. Bring them our answer. The transmission ended. The bridge was silent again. I turned to face my crew. I had known this moment might come someday, but I had prayed it would not come in my lifetime. I was 63 years old. I had spent 40 years of my life studying Valor and philosophy, reading their books, walking in their gardens when they invited human scholars to visit. I had loved them not as teachers, as family, and now the family was gone. Listen to me, I said. What we are about to do will change humanity forever. The galaxy thinks we are soft. They think we are farmers and poets, hiding behind the skirts of older species. They do not know what we have built in our quiet centuries. They do not know what we have become. We will show them, but before we do, I need every one of you to understand something. The Valoran never wanted us to become killers. They wanted us to become better. If we go down this road, we go down it knowing the cost. We go down it knowing that every shot we fire is a shot the Valoran would have asked us not to fire, and yet we fire anyway because some things cannot go unanswered. I looked at Clara. She was not crying anymore. Her eyes were hard now, older than they had been that morning. Lieutenant Hunt, I said, set a course for the Vesca transit. The Hegemony 7th Border Fleet is stationed there. They are celebrating. They think the war is over. They think they have won. Yes, Commander. Peter, I said, open a channel to every ship in the Terran Expeditionary Armada. All 112 of them. Tell them what we are doing. Tell them they may turn back if They wish no shame will fall on any captain who chooses peace, but those who come with me come with open eyes. We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to posture. We are going to answer. Yes, sir. The orders went out. I waited, my hands folded behind my back, my eyes on the stars. I wondered how many ships would turn away. None of them did. Every single captain sent back the same reply, a short one. Just 2 words, with you. I felt my throat tighten. I nodded once. Slowly. Navigator Bennett, I said, take us to slipspace. We have a long journey ahead. The great engines of my flagship began to hum. The stars outside the window stretched and twisted into long lines of light, and somewhere in the deep silence of my heart I could almost hear Sarah Lynn's voice from when I was a child, reciting a poem about the stars. I hoped she would forgive me for what I was about to do, but I was going to do it anyway. The Armada fell out of slipspace at the edge of the Vesca transit, and the sight that greeted us was exactly what my intelligence officers had described: 400 warships of the Hegemony 7th Border Fleet arranged in lazy patrol patterns, their shields at minimum power, their crews clearly celebrating. Lights flickered across their hulls in patterns I recognized from my studies. Hegemony victory signals. They were throwing a party in the void. I stood at the center of my bridge and watched them on the main screen. My officers watched with me. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They have not seen us yet, Grace Bennett said quietly from her navigation station. Our stealth systems are holding. We can close to optimal firing range before they detect us. Good, I said. Hold position for now. I want them to know we are here before we fire. Henry Cole, my weapons officer, looked up from his console with a surprised expression. Sir, we have the advantage of surprise. If we strike now, we can end this fleet in minutes. I know, I said, but this is not only about ending them. This is about sending a message to every Hegemony admiral who still breathes. I want Carax of the Thorn Crown to look me in the eye before he dies. I want him to know who came for him. Henry nodded slowly. He was a quiet man, but he understood. I turned to Peter Hall at the communication station. Peter, open a channel to the Hegemony flagship. Wide broadcast every frequency. I want every ship in that fleet to hear what I am about to say. Channel open, sir. I walked slowly to the front of the bridge. I thought about the words I was going to use. I had rehearsed them in my head during the entire slipspace journey. I had written them down. Then I had thrown the paper away. In the end, I decided that no speech I could give would carry the weight of what needed to be said, so I would not give a speech. I would give them a song. Peter, I said, play the recording I prepared, the one in file Delta 7. Yes, sir. The recording began. It was a Valor lullaby, the same one Sarah Lynn had taught us in school when we were children. The same one the Valoran had sung to their own young for 1,000,000 years. It was soft and slow, full of long notes that rose and fell like gentle waves. It was the sound of a mother singing her child to sleep. On the main screen I watched the Hegemony fleet. At first nothing happened, then their communications began to light up. They had heard it. They recognized it. They knew exactly what it meant. The flagship of Carax of the Thorn Crown began to turn toward us. Its shields began to rise. its weapons began to power up, but it was too late, much too late. Henry, I said quietly, fire. The sky lit up. I had read about the Icarus protocols in classified documents my entire career, but I had never seen them used. Few humans had. For 3 centuries we had promised the Valoran we would not develop such weapons, and we had kept that promise on paper. But in the dark corners of our research labs, under black budgets hidden from public view, we had built them anyway, not because we wanted to use them, because we feared a day like this might come. The relativistic strike vehicles left our forward tubes at a fraction of the speed of light. They were nothing more than long rods of tungsten metal. No warheads, no explosives, just mass and speed. When they hit the hegemony warships, the ship simply ceased to exist. There was no explosion in the traditional sense. There was only a flash of light as the energy of the impact converted into pure heat. Whole capital ships vanished in an instant, leaving behind only glowing clouds of vapor. Within the first minute of the engagement, 80 hegemony warships were gone. Within the second minute, another 60. The surviving ships tried to form defensive lines. They tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed to fight slow-moving enemies at close range. They were not designed to fight an enemy that could strike from halfway across the system. My swarm-class support ships moved into their secondary patterns. These were the ships I called the learners. Each one carried an advanced computer system that watched every move the enemy made, learned their tactics in real time, and adjusted our own tactics to counter them. Within the first 3 minutes, the learners had identified every weakness in the hegemony formation. Within 5 minutes, they had mapped every command ship, every supply line, every escape route. Nothing the enemy did was a surprise anymore. We were not just fighting them, we were predicting them. On the main screen, I watched the hegemony flagship try to escape. Carax was smart. He knew the battle was lost. He turned his ship toward the edge of the system, trying to reach slip space. Let him run, I said. Henry looked at me in confusion. Sir, let him run, I said again, but disable his ship first. I do not want him dead. I want him to survive this. I want him to carry what he saw here back to his people. I want every member of the 9 Crown to see his face when he tells them what happened to his fleet. Henry nodded and targeted the engines of the hegemony flagship. A single precise shot and the great warship went dead in the void, its engines cold, its weapons offline, its crew alive but stranded. I turned to Peter. Open a channel to Carax direct, no delay. A moment later, the ugly, proud face of Carax of the Thorned Crown appeared on my main screen. He was old, with skin the color of dried blood and great curving horns on his head. His eyes were full of fury, but also something else, something I had never seen in a hegemony admiral before. Fear. Human, he said. His voice was rough, like stones grinding together. What is this? What have you done? My name is Commander Elias Vance of the Terran Expeditionary Armada, I said. I'm the son of a species you tried to destroy 300 years ago. I'm Snorts, the student of a species you destroyed last week. I have come to present you with a bill. Carax, not today, not at this battle. The bill is much larger than a single fleet. Today is only the first Payment, I'm letting you live so that you can go back to your masters and tell them what you have seen. Tell them humanity is coming. Tell them we are coming for every admiral, every warlord, every politician who voted to erase the Valoran. Them we know their names. Tell them we know where they live. Tell them there is no hole deep enough to hide in. And when they ask you why we are doing this, Carax, tell them the truth. Tell them that when the Valoran had no one to stand for them, we remembered who stood for us. Carax stared at me for a long moment, his face twisted with a dozen emotions. Then slowly he did something I did not expect. He bowed his head. It was a small gesture, barely more than a nod. But among his people, it was the gesture of a defeated warrior acknowledging a superior one. I will carry your message, he said. Then the channel closed. I turned to my crew. The bridge was silent. Every officer was looking at me with the same expression, a mixture of awe, grief, and something else. Something new. They were beginning to understand what we had become. Grace, I said, plot a course to the next target. Yes, Commander, where to? I thought for a moment. There were many worlds that deserved our attention, many admirals who deserved to meet me, but one world stood out from the rest, one world where the hegemony had celebrated the loudest when the Valoran fell. World called Thelos Prime. Thelos Prime, I said. We are going to pay them a visit. The Armada turned as 112 warships. Now battle-tested, now blooded, now certain of their purpose. We left the Vesca transit behind us, leaving only wreckage and silence where the hegemony 7th Border Fleet had once been. As we traveled, I received updates from Earth. The news of the battle had already spread across the galaxy. 1,000 worlds were talking about it. The hegemony was calling for emergency sessions of their ruling council. The unaligned species, the ones who had stayed quiet during the extermination of the Valoran, were suddenly very interested in sending diplomatic envoys to Earth. Some were offering alliances. Some were offering tribute. Some were offering information about hegemony leaders hiding in their territories. I accepted the information. I ignored the rest. In the quiet hours between battles, I walked through my flagship. I visited the crew in the mess halls. I sat with young soldiers and listened to their stories. I found that many of them had personal reasons for being here. One young woman, a gunner named Lily Ward, told me that her grandmother had been saved by a Valoran medical ship during a plague on a human colony world. Another soldier, a tall man named Samuel Price, told me his father had studied Valoran music for 30 years. Everywhere I went, I found the same story. The Valoran had touched our lives in 1,000 quiet ways, and now that they were gone, we were all grieving together. One night, a young lieutenant named Maurice Akinquo found me in the observation deck. I was standing alone, looking at the stars. She was a bright officer, barely 28 years old, and she had served on my flagship for 2 years. She hesitated at the door. Permission to speak freely, Commander. Granted. She walked over and stood beside me. For a long time, she did not say anything. Then finally she spoke. Sir, do you think the Valoran would have wanted this? Do you think Saralyn, if she could see us now, would be proud of what we are doing? I thought about the question for a long time. I thought about everything Saralyn had taught me, I thought about her gentle voice, her patient smile, her way of answering questions with more questions. And I thought about the last time I had seen her at a dinner on Earth, 5 years ago, where she had looked at me with a sad smile and said, "Elias, you must not love us too much. Love the stars more. The stars will still be here when we are gone." No, I said quietly, she would not be proud. She would not want this. If she were standing here right now, she would take my hand and she would ask me to stop. She would tell me that this path leads to a place I do not want to go. Maurice looked at me with wide eyes. Then, "Why are we doing it, sir?" I turned to face her. Because love does not always make us into better people, Lieutenant. Sometimes love makes us into the worst versions of ourselves. I am doing this not because I believe it is right, but because I cannot bear to do nothing, and I will carry the weight of that choice for the rest of my life, but I will not ask you to carry it with me. If you wish to leave this armada, I will send you home with honor. No shame will touch your name. Maurice was quiet for a long moment, then she shook her head. "I will stay, Commander. Someone has to remember who we are supposed to be. Someone has to remind us when this is over, of the version of ourselves we left behind. I will stay and I will watch. And I will remember." I nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant." She saluted and left. I stood alone at the window looking out at the stars, and for the first time since the war began, I felt truly afraid, not of the hegemony, not of battle, but of myself, of what I was becoming. The next day we arrived at Thelos Prime. Thelos Prime was not like the Vesca transit. It was a populated world, home to nearly 4 billion hegemony citizens. It had been a crown world for 8,000 years, wealthy beyond measure, decorated with gardens and palaces. When the Valoran homeworld fell, the citizens of Thelos Prime had held a great festival. They had lit their skies with fireworks. They had sung songs of celebration. Their leaders had declared it a holy day, to be remembered every year. I knew all of this because my intelligence officers had shown me the footage. Every year, every song, every celebration. I had watched it 3 times. I had made myself watch it. When my armada fell out of slipspace above Thelos Prime, their defense fleet was already waiting for us. 200 warships arranged in tight formation, their shields at full power. They had learned from what had happened at the Vesca transit. They were ready. But ready was not the same as able. The Battle of Thelos Prime lasted 40 minutes. It was longer than Vesca, but the outcome was in doubt. We lost 9 ships. They lost everything. When the last of their warships was destroyed, I turned my attention to the planet itself. The planetary governor sent a message. He was weeping as he spoke. He begged for mercy. He offered unconditional surrender. He said the people of Thelos Prime had nothing to do with the decisions of the 9 crowns. He said they were innocent. I listened to his message. I read the transcript of his past speeches. I watched the footage of him leading the victory celebration when the Valorans fell. I looked at his face as he had cheered, as he had raised a glass of wine in toast, as he had declared that the galaxy was finally free of the old pests. Then I turned to Henry Cole. "Target the planetary defense grid," I said. "Target the military installations. Target the shipyards. Nothing else. No cities, no civilians. Only their ability to make war." Henry nodded. The orders went out. Within an hour, Thelos Prime was disarmed. Its defense grid was gone. Its shipyards were dust. Its military was broken, but its city still stood. Its garden still bloomed. Its 4 billion people still lived. I opened a channel to the governor. Governor, I said, you have your lives, you do not have your weapons. This is my mercy. It is more mercy than you showed the Valorans. Live with it. And tell your children and their children what happened here today. Tell them that when the old gods fell, new gods rose. Tell them to remember our faces. Tell them never to forget. The governor bowed his head and said, nothing. I turned to Grace. Next world. We left Thelos Prime behind and we moved on. The weeks that followed blurred together in my memory like pages of a book read. Too quickly, we moved from system to system, from world to world, and each battle taught us something new about ourselves. At Karath, the home world of the species who had led the strike against the Valoran, I did something I had not done. At Thelos Prime, I did not spare their cities. I had studied their leaders for weeks. I knew which cities housed their war councils, their weapons factories, their command bunkers. I targeted those. The civilian districts, the farming regions, the coastal towns I left untouched, but the heart of their war machine, the cities where the decision had been made to erase the Valoran, I reduced to rubble. Not with weapons of mass destruction. With precise strikes, one building at a time, one target at a time. It took 3 days. When it was over, I did not feel victorious. I felt hollow. Maris came to see me again that night. She did not speak. She simply sat across from me in my private quarters and waited. I poured her a glass of water. She drank it slowly. I keep thinking about what you said. She finally told me about love making us into the worst versions of ourselves. I used to think love made people better. My mother used to tell me that love was the best thing in the universe, that it was the only thing worth living for, but I am starting to understand what you meant, Commander. Love is not a gentle thing. Love is a force, and like any force, it can build or it can destroy, depending on how we use it. I nodded slowly. Your mother was not wrong, Maris. Love is the best thing in the universe, but it is also the most dangerous because it makes us do things we would never do for ourselves. A man will stand by and watch himself be wronged, but let someone harm the person he loves, and he will burn down a galaxy to make it right. Is that what you are doing, sir? Burning down the galaxy? I was quiet for a long time, then I answered, I do not know, Lieutenant. I really do not know. At Cillian Reach, a system of neutral traders who had sold the coordinates of fleeing Valorium refugee convoys to the hegemony for profit, I did not fire a single shot. I simply arrived with my armada and surrounded their largest trading station. I opened a channel to their Council of Merchants. You made money from the deaths of my teachers, I said. I am taking that money back, all of it, every credit, every account, every holding. It now belongs to the Valorium survivors. Wherever they may be, your government is dissolved, your trade licenses are revoked. You may continue to exist as a people, but you will never again be traders in this galaxy. This is my answer to your greed. The merchants protested. They threatened. They begged. I ignored them. All my financial officers transferred every credit from their accounts to a fund I had established in the name of the Valorium, and then we left. No shots fired, no ships destroyed, just absolute economic ruin. It was, in some ways, the cruelest thing I did. Word spread across the galaxy faster than any fleet could travel. Species I had never heard of began sending envoys to my flagship asking for audiences. Some wanted to offer alliance, some wanted to offer tribute, some wanted to give me the locations of hegemony, officials who were hiding in their territories. One small species, the Vethari, who had been quietly bullied by the hegemony for centuries, sent me a gift. It was a simple box made of wood. Inside was a flower pressed flat between two sheets of glass. The envoy told me it was a Valoran flower, one of the last. The Vethari had been secretly growing them in their gardens for 200 years, afraid the hegemony would find out and punish them for it. I accepted the gift. I placed it on my desk. I looked at it every night before I slept. Then came the message that changed everything. It arrived in the middle of the night. While I was asleep in my quarters, Peter Hall woke me personally, his face pale and his voice shaking. "Commander, you need to come to the bridge now, please, sir." I did not ask questions. I dressed in, ran. When I reached the bridge, every officer was standing around the communications console, staring at it as if they had seen a ghost. Peter pointed at the display with a trembling hand. "Sir, we are receiving a signal from the Outer Veil, a region the Valoran once called sacred. The signal is using old Valoran identifier codes, ancient ones. I ran it through our databases 3 times, sir. The codes are authentic. There is no mistake." I stared at the screen. My knees felt weak. "Play the message, Peter." He pressed the button. A voice filled the bridge, a voice I had not heard in 5 years, a voice I had been certain with a sickness in my heart that I would never hear again. It was Sur Chinese letter. She said only one sentence in the gentle, patient voice I remembered from my childhood, the voice that had taught me poems about the stars. "Ilyas, if you can hear this, please come. There are still some of us left." The message ended. The bridge was silent. I stood there for a long moment, unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to think. Then I felt something strange on my face. I touched it with my fingers and realized I was crying. I had not cried in 30 years, not since my grandfather's funeral, but I was crying now openly in front of my entire crew. And I did not care. "Grace," I finally said. My voice was hoarse. "Plot a course for the Outer Veil immediately." "Yes, Commander." Peter sent a reply. "Tell Serlin we are coming. Tell her we are bringing every ship we have. Tell her she will never be alone again. Tell her." I stopped. I did not know what else to tell her. I did not know how to explain what I had been doing in her name. I did not know how to explain what I had become. Peter waited patiently. "Just tell her we are coming," I said. Finally, "Yes, sir." The Armada turned. We left the campaign behind. Every other target, every other world, every other admiral would have to wait. There was only one destination. Now, I went back to my quarters. I sat on the edge of my bed. I looked at the pressed Valoran flower on my desk, and I tried to remember who I had been 3 months ago, before this all began. I could not remember the man who had stood on this bridge when the first distress signal came in was gone. Someone else had taken his place. Someone colder, someone harder, someone I was not sure I liked. But Serlin was alive and nothing else mattered. Nothing else had ever mattered. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my desk and I wrote a letter to Serlin. I tried to explain everything. I filled 12 pages, then I read it and realized it sounded like the ramblings of a guilty man. I tore it up. I tried again, another 10 pages. I tore those up too. In the end, I wrote only one sentence. I folded it carefully and put it in my pocket. It read simply, I am sorry for what I have become. I hope you can still see the boy you once taught. The journey to the outer veil took 6 days, 6 of the longest days of my life. The outer veil was a quiet region of space far from any major trade routes. The stars there were old and dim. Valoran had considered it a holy region. They had built small gardens on the moons. They had buried their dead there when their dead had to be buried, which was rarely, for the Valoran lived very long lives. When my armada arrived, we found them a hidden enclave, nothing fancy, just a cluster of small habitats on a single moon, protected by camouflage fields that had hidden them from every scan for centuries. My sensors counted roughly 12,000 life signs, 12,000 Valoran out of billions that had once walked the stars. But 12,000 was not zero. 12,000 was a future. I took a small shuttle down to the moon. I went alone. I left my armada in orbit with orders to fire on no one and to respond only if I personally called for help. My officers protested, especially Clara, who insisted on coming with me. I refused them all. This was not a meeting for soldiers. The shuttle landed in a small clearing. I stepped out onto the surface of the moon. The gravity was low. The air was thin but breathable. The sky above me was full of stars brighter than any I had ever seen. And she was waiting for me. Serlin, older than I remembered. Her tall, luminous body was thinner now, and her glow was fainter, but she was still beautiful, still gentle, still patient. She stood in the clearing, surrounded by a few other Valoran, all of them watching me with quiet eyes. I did not know what to do. For a moment, I just stood there like a boy who had been caught doing something wrong. Then I walked toward her. I stopped a few feet away, and without saying a word, I reached into my pocket, took out the letter I had written, and held it out to her. She took it, she read it. The letter was only one sentence long. She finished quickly. Then she did something that broke me. She stepped forward, she put her arms around me, and she held me, just held me, like she had held me once when I was a child and I had fallen from a tree in her garden on earth and scraped my knee. And I wept for every world I had broken. I wept for every life I had ended. I wept for the boy I had been and the man I had become. I wept for the Valoran who had died and for the ones who had somehow survived. I wept because I did not know what else to do. She let me weep. She did not speak. She simply held me until I was done. When I finally pulled back, she looked at me with her kind eyes, and she said the words that would change the rest of my life. Elias, my dear boy, we did not die so that you could avenge us. We died so that you could choose differently then. We were allowed to choose. The hegemony made their choice and they fell. Do not let your grief make the same choice for you. Come sit with me. Let us talk. We have much to discuss. And I followed her like a child. because that is what I still was in that moment, a child returning home. I sat with Cerulean for many hours that day. We walked through her small garden. We spoke of the past and of the dead and of the long work still ahead. At one point, a group of Violaran children came out to see us. They were small and bright and curious, and when they saw me, they did not run away. One of them, a little one with luminous eyes, walked up to me and put her tiny hand in mine. She did not speak, she just held my hand. I looked down at her and felt my entire world change. Cerulean watched us with a soft smile. Her name is Kaylees, she said. Her mother did not survive the crossing to this moon. We are raising her together, all of us, as we raise all our children. She is very curious about humans. She has been asking about you for weeks, since we first heard rumors of what was happening in the galaxy. What did you tell her? I asked. I told her the truth. I told her that humans are capable of great love and great terror, and that the galaxy is still deciding which of those two things we will choose to remember. I knelt down so that I was at the same height as Kaylees. I looked into her small, trusting face and I made a silent promise to her, a promise I would keep for the rest of my life. I will protect you, I whispered, all of you, not with war, with something better. Kaylees smiled at me. She did not understand my words, but she understood my heart. She reached up and touched my face with her small fingers. Then she giggled and ran back to her friends. Cerulean watched me stand up. You are thinking about ending the war, she said softly, but you do not yet know how. No, I admitted, I do not. Then let me help you, Ilias. Let me help you find a way. We walked back to the habitat. I spent 3 days on that moon talking with Cerulean and the elders of the Enclave. They did not ask me to stop the war. Immediately, they understood that there were forces in motion that could not simply be turned off, but they asked me to consider a different ending, an ending that would honor the dead without creating more dead, an ending that would use the power humanity had shown to build something new rather than only to destroy what was old. By the end of those 3 days, I had a plan. It was not my plan, it was ours. Cerulean's and mine and the elders. It was an idea that none of us could have reached alone. It would require me to do things I did not want to do. It would require me to stand in front of the entire galaxy and make promises I was not sure I could keep, but it was the only path forward that did not end in more ashes. When I left the moon to return to my Armada, I did not feel like the same man who had landed there. Something in me had shifted, something had healed just a little, and something else had grown. I carried Kaylee's small handprint, invisible on my face for the rest of my life. On the flight back to my flagship, I opened a channel to Earth, to Secretary General Margaret Ford, to every leader of every nation on my home world. I told them what I had found. I told them Cerulean was alive. I told them there were 12,000 Violaran survivors, and I told them I was about to do something they might not approve of. Margaret listened quietly. When I was done, she was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. Ilias, you have been given the full authority of humanity. Whatever you decide, we will stand behind you. Do what you believe is right. The Violaran saved us once. It seems they may be saving us again. I thanked her and closed the channel. The Armada turned one last time. We sat Course for a single destination, the capital of the hegemony of 9 crowns. A world called Tar-Vexil. We were going to end the war, but not in the way anyone expected. The Armada fell out of slip space above Tar-Vexil, and what we found waiting for us was the last desperate defense of a dying empire. Every warship the hegemony had left, every cruiser, every gunboat, every armed transport they could find. Over 800 ships in total, forming a massive defensive sphere around their homeworld. Their weapons were charged there. Shields were at maximum, their crews were ready to die. I stood on the bridge of my flagship and looked at them through the main screen. My officers waited for the order to fire. They were prepared. They had been preparing for this moment for months. This was the final battle. This was the end of the hegemony. I did not give the order. Instead, I turned to Peter. Open a channel to every vessel in that fleet and to the surface of Tar-Vexil, and to every world in the galaxy. Everyone, Peter. I want every species and every star system to hear what I am about to say. Connect me to every network, every relay, every listening post. This is the biggest broadcast we have ever made. Make it happen. Peter's hands flew across his console. Sir, a broadcast of that size will take a few minutes to coordinate. Multiple relay stations, multiple species, networks. Take your time, Peter. Do it right. I waited. The bridge was quiet. My officers looked at each other confused. Henry Cole watched me with careful eyes. Clara Hunt, standing at her station, looked at me with something like hope. Marissa Kunko, now a captain after her promotion 3 weeks earlier, smiled faintly from the back of the bridge. Peter finally looked up. Ready, sir. You are on every channel in the known galaxy. Estimated audience, 300 billion beings. I nodded. I walked to the center of the bridge. I took a deep breath, then I began. My name is Elias Vance. I'm the commander of the Terran Expeditionary Armada. I am the man who has led the campaign against the hegemony of 9 crowns for the last 4 months. By my orders, dozens of hegemony worlds have been disarmed. By my orders, their military fleets have been destroyed. By my orders, their empire has been broken. You all know this. You have all watched it happen. Some of you have cheered. Some of you have wept. All of you have wondered when it will end. Today it ends. But it does not end the way you think. It does not end with the destruction of Tar-Vexil. It does not end with the deaths of the 9 crowns. It ends with a choice I am going to make in front of all of you, and with a promise I am going to offer to every species in this galaxy. I paused. I looked at the stars on the screen. I thought of Sarah-Lynn watching me from her quiet moon. I thought of Kaylee's, the little one with the bright eyes. 300 years ago, I continued, when humanity was young and helpless, the Valoran stood between us and the hegemony. They did not do it for trade. They did not do it for profit. They did it because they believed we could become something greater than we were. They gave us 3 centuries to grow. They taught us their sciences, their arts, their philosophy. They loved us not as pets but as students, as family. And when hegemony finally rose against them, we were not strong enough to save them. They died, and I, in my grief, chose the path of war. I built fleets. I trained armies. I used weapons that should never have been used. I did terrible things in the name of people who would have asked me to do none of. I carry the weight of every world I have broken, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. I will not pretend. Otherwise, I will not ask for forgiveness. I will not say I am sorry, because sorry is not enough. What I did cannot be undone, but it can be redirected, and that is what I am here to do today. I stopped. My voice had grown steadier. My hands had stopped shaking. I looked directly into the camera. There are still Valoran alive. I found them. They are hidden safe in a place I will not name. 12,000 of them there. Elder, the one who taught me when I was a child, is among them. Her name is Sir Alan, and she has asked me to do something difficult. She has asked me to end this war, not with more destruction, but with something new, something the galaxy has never seen before. And so, in her honor and in the honor of every Valoran who died because we were not yet strong enough, I am going to offer this to every species who is listening to me now. Listen carefully. Listen well, because what I say next will shape the next 1,000 years of this galaxy. I took a deep breath. The hegemony of 9 crowns is dissolved, effective immediately. Its 9 ruling species are no longer permitted to act as a single political body. Their shared fleets are disbanded. Their shared laws are void. Their war leaders will face a multi-species tribunal with judges from every culture they have ever harmed. Those found to have ordered the extermination of the Valoran will face justice according to the laws of a neutral court. I will not be their judge. I have done enough. Galaxy will judge them. That is the first thing. I pause to let those words sink in. Second thing is this: humanity will not take the throne of the hegemony. We will not rule the worlds we have conquered. We will not demand tribute. We will not demand loyalty. The worlds we have disarmed will be given back to their own peoples to govern themselves as they see fit. Our only condition is that they do not rebuild the machinery of conquest. No more empires, no more client species, no more extermination campaigns. Galaxy is for all its peoples, not for any one of them. That is the second thing. Another pause. The third thing is the hardest. The third thing is the thing Saruman asked me to promise, and so I will promise it now to every species and every system who is listening. From this day forward, humanity will not rule. We will guard. We will stand where the Valorians once stood, between the strong and the weak, between the old and the young, between the ones who would destroy and the ones who would be destroyed. If any species anywhere at any time attempts to commit the kind of erasure the hegemony committed against the Valorian, humanity will come. We will not come to conquer. We will come to stand in the way, and we will not leave until the threat is ended. This is our new role. This is our inheritance. Valorian died so that we could become this, and so we will become it. I give you my word. I give you the word of my species. I give you the word of every human child yet to be born. I stopped. I felt my voice crack. I steadied it. The fourth thing and the last is a confession. Humanity will never forget what we did in this war. We will teach it in our schools. We will write about it in our books. We will remember every world we broke, every life we ended, every choice we made in grief and fury. We will carry this weight not as a badge of honor, but as a warning to ourselves, to our children, to every future commander who ever stands where I stand. Now we will say, this is what love looks like when it loses its wisdom. This is what strength looks like when it forgets its purpose. Do not become us. Do better than us. Remember they. Valoran, remember Sorlin. And remember Ilias Vance, who did a terrible thing for the right reasons and who asked the galaxy to forgive him not with words but with 1,000 years of peace. I stood in silence for a moment. The bridge was completely still. To the hegemony fleet now arrayed against me I say this, you may stand down. Every crew that surrenders will be allowed to return home. No one will be harmed, no ship will be taken. You have my word. To the 9 crowns on the surface of Tar Vexel I say this, open your doors to the tribunal that is coming. Face the judgment of the galaxy. It will be fair, it will be slow, but it will be just, and it will not be at my hand. To every species and every star system I say this, the concord of silent waters is now forming. It is named for the Valoran elder who asked me to build it. Any species may join. Its charter will be written by all, not by humans alone. Its mission is simple: protect the young, guard the weak, remember the cost of power misused. That is all. That is the whole of the charter. Join us or do not. The choice is yours. I took a long breath. This is Commander Ilias Vance of the Terran Expeditionary Armada. This is my final order as a commander of war. From this moment forward, I will command no more battles. I will fire no more weapons. I will sign no more death orders. I have reached the end of what I can do with a fleet. The rest must be done by diplomats, by teachers, by builders, by children. I stepped into this chair 4 months ago to answer a crime. The answer is given. The war is ended, and I am tired. Thank you for listening. May the stars watch over you all. The broadcast ended. The bridge was utterly silent. Then slowly, one by one, the ships of the hegemony fleet began to shut down. Their weapons, their shields dropped. Their offensive systems went dark. Not all of them at first. Some resisted. Some commanders refused to believe it. But within 20 minutes, over 600 of the 800 hegemony warships had stood down. Within an hour, it was nearly all of them. The few that remained armed were isolated, surrounded by their own surrendering fleet, and quickly convinced to follow. The surface of Tar Vexel sent a reply in. Hour later, the 9 crowns, speaking together for the last time, accepted the terms. They agreed to the tribunal. They agreed to the dissolution. They agreed to all of it. I think by the end they were grateful. They had expected to die. Instead, they were being allowed to face justice and live for a species that had built their empire on extermination. Even a harsh trial must have felt like mercy. The messages from other worlds began to arrive within minutes of my broadcast. They came from every direction, every species, every corner of the galaxy. The Vethari, the ones who had given me the pressed flower, sent their agreement to join the conquered within the first 10 minutes. The Cillian merchants, now stripped of their wealth, sent a message asking if they could be included. Dozens of species I had never heard of sent envoys. Even some of the hegemony client worlds, freed from their masters, sent messages of support. The conquered of silent waters was born that day in the orbit of a defeated empire under the light of unfamiliar stars. I did not stay to watch the celebrations. I asked my crew to handle the formal surrenders. I gave Captain Maris Ekanagwa command of the Armada on a temporary basis until Earth could send new leadership. Maris accepted with tears in her eyes. I shook her hand. I told her she would be a fine commander. Then I took a small shuttle and went back to the outer veil. I went back to Surilin. She was waiting for me in her garden. She had watched my broadcast. Her eyes were soft when she saw me. She took my hands in hers. "You did well, my boy," she said. "You did very well." I do not feel like I did well, Surilin. I feel like I did the best I could after doing everything wrong. That is how it always feels, Elias. That is how it felt for us when we stood between humanity and the hegemony 300 years ago. We did not feel like heroes. We felt like beings who were making the best choice out of many bad ones. You have done the same. You have chosen in the end to be a shield. That is enough. That is more than enough. I sat down on a stone bench in her garden. Kaylee's came running out of the habitat and climbed into my lap. She was still small, still bright, still full of laughter. She pulled at my beard and made me laugh too. Surilin sat beside me. We watched the stars together. "You will not be welcomed everywhere," she said softly. "There are species who will hate you for what you did in the war. There are humans who will hate you for ending the war without finishing the hegemony. You will carry both of these angers for the rest of your life. You understand this?" "I understand." "And yet you did it anyway." "Yes." "Good, that is what makes it a choice." Elios, a choice made without cost is not a choice, it is only a preference. You have made a real choice. Carry it with honor. I nodded. I held Kaylee's a little tighter. She giggled. I lived for another 40 years after that day. I did not return to military service. I did not seek political office. I spent my time helping to build the Concord of Silent Waters. Its charter was written over 2 years by representatives of 240 species. It became the foundation of a new kind of galactic order, not an empire, not an alliance, a promise that the strong would stand between the weak and the cruel for as long as the strong could be trusted to remember why. I helped train the first generation of Concord officers. I taught them what I had learned, the terrible lessons as well as the good ones. I told them about Surilin. I told them about Kaylee's. I told them about the worlds I had broken. And I told them to never ever become what I had been at the height of my grief. Some of them understood, some of them did not. The ones who did not I sent home. The ones who did I trusted with the future. I saw Surilin every year until she passed. She lived to be very old even for a Valoran. She left this world peacefully in her garden, surrounded by the children she had raised. Kaylee's, now grown, was beside her. I was beside her too. She looked at me as she went, and she smiled. She said, "You did well, my boy," and then she was gone. Kaylee's grew up to become the first Valoran ambassador to the Concord. She worked alongside me for many years. She was brilliant, patient, kind, like Surilin had been. She reminded me every day of what I was fighting to protect. Not with speeches, just with her presence, with her small acts of mercy, with her endless curiosity about the galaxy. When I finally grew too old to work, I retired to a small house on Earth. I wrote my memoirs slowly over 5 years. I told the truth about everything. The terrible things I had done, the reason I had done them, the faces I could not forget, the regrets I would carry to my grave. I did not try to justify myself. I did not try to make myself look better. I simply told the truth, and I let the readers judge me. The book was controversial. Some called it a confession, some called it a war crime manual, some called it one of the great works of human literature. I did not care what they called it. I only cared that the truth was written down so that no one after me could ever use my story to justify doing worse. I died in my sleep at the age of 103 on a quiet spring morning. My grandchildren were around me. My friends had visited. The day before, I was not afraid. I had said everything I needed to say. I had done everything I could do. On my grave, at my request, they carved only one line. It was the line that later became the motto of every conquered fleet, engraved above the bridge of every conquered ship, taught to every conquered officer in their first year of training. It read, "They once shielded us, now we shield every star, not because we are worthy of the duty, but because we remember what it cost to earn it." Generations passed, the conquered grew. It was not perfect, no institution is. There were moments of failure, moments of corruption, moments when humans forgot why they had taken up the shield in the first place, but each generation produced at least a few people who remembered, who read my memoirs, who visited Sirlin's garden on the moon, which was preserved as a sacred site, who understood that the conquered was not a birthright, it was an obligation paid in advance by beings who had died so that we could have the chance to be better. And in the quiet moments late at night, when the stars are full and the ships are silent, the officers of the conquered sometimes whisper an old Valoran lullaby to themselves, the one their ancestors, the Valoran, used to sing to their young, the one I played once, a long time ago, to a hegemony fleet at the Vesca Transit, on a day I try never to remember and can never forget. It is a soft song, a slow song, a song of waves and wind and patient love. It is in the end the song of the galaxy we chose to build. And it is enough.